testimony is a story. The story of what was once a struggle or a hindrance. But now that struggle has been turned into victory. What has defeated you? Drugs, sex, pride, selfishness. Join Andre and BJ for the Overcomer's Testimony Corner. Revelation 12:11 says, "And they overcame him through the blood of the Lamb and through the word of their testimony."
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This is BJ, and I'm here with, who am I here with?
Emmanuel Smith.
All righty. We're starting a new Facebook Live podcast, and this one is called The Overcomer's Testimony. And this is an opportunity where we can come together and share what God has done in our lives to overcome different things, different difficulties, addictions, depression, whatever it may be that we struggle with in life. And this is a good time to share what God has done for us. And I just want to start out with a verse, and this is kind of what has driven this idea in this podcast. And so here we go. It's Revelation 12:11, and it says, "And they overcame the devil by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death." And that's Revelations 12:11. The idea behind this is to show that God's loved us so much that he died on the cross for us, so that way we can overcome the sins of this world. And so our first guest we have here is Emmanuel, well, I should say Chef Emmanuel Smith with Heaven's Healthy Kitchen. And he has something he'd like to share with everybody. So Emmanuel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, first I must start off and let you guys know that as a child, I stuttered. I mean, bad, like can't get words out. School was not good. People talking about you. And so now, today, I would say that I stammer. So I will stumble over words, but I'm not at that point where I'm stuck or I can't speak. But just to get that out there, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, I had one parent. My mom was from Tennessee. My dad was from Mississippi, and so they got together in Memphis, and I grew up to about the age of 3. My dad left, and so that's a whole other story. But yeah, I was raised as a Christian. I still am a Christian, but I'm gonna speak more on my journey and how I overcame, and just the confidence that God gives us, and that we have to trust Him that He will give it. And so yeah, born and raised in Memphis, and I don't remember when I first started to stutter, but I definitely remember when people began to talk about me. Like, I mean, they would copy what I would say when I would mess up. They would, and as a child, you're just talking like as children, you don't pay attention to things that are messed up. Like, it's not nothing different for you. It's just, I mean, I stutter, so
right.
I'm not paying that much attention to it, but others are. And so at school, I mean, they would repeat what I would say, if I get stuck, they would just hone in on that. You know, children kind of do that.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't that make the situation worse?
Yes. And something else is when people try to help you say what you're trying to say. It's like, man, I've been struggling for like some seconds, and you just come in and say, oh, such and such. It's like, man, let me try to get it out. But, you know, people just don't know. And I definitely like this platform that you guys have. And people need to be educated on people that do stutter or stammer or just have some type of speech ailment, you know.
Yep.
And so, so taunted by people at school, people at church, but at school, one day it just got to me just so bad. And so I went home, I was crying. I told my mom, I said, Mama, why do I talk like this? Why can't I just talk regularly, normal, you know? And she said, well, it's just something, you know, that just happened. I mean, I can't explain why you do it or whatever, but she told me to just take my time, and I did. Notice when I take my time and I breathe and I slow down, that helps me to speak more clearly. But as a child, and my mom talked very fast. So one thing I did learn that it's not a disorder. It ain't something that's wrong with you. Most of the time it's because of how you learn how to talk as a child. Sometimes children are pushed to talk like everybody else at a faster pace than they are ready to. So that often causes a child to stutter or to not have the best speech, you know. We are in a society where everything is rush, fast, and taking time is just not an option. And so in that process, it hurts the development of a child.
Okay. So did you would your mom say that you stuttered from the very first time you started talking, or?
When I asked her, she just, like when I started to talk, I think when my dad left at the age of 3, I think that traumatic experience and then the development of my speech, it was kind of, you know, how when a child may say something wrong, you try to fix how they say it, and sometimes the parents would be so hard on their child that they feel, oh man, I need to speak perfectly,
right,
every time. That was my issue.
okay,
where I thought I have to talk perfect, and if I don't, that just stressed me out and anxiety. And so that's what probably made it even worse, because I'm trying to talk perfect.
right.
And to be honest, in the studying, the research that I've done, there's not a person that talks perfectly. To talk perfectly, you don't say like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? You don't.
That is a form of stuttering in itself. You're having to your brain's either catching up or you're trying to slow yourself down. Yep, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
So, do you remember your parents splitting up? Did you? I mean, you said that may have been the traumatic point where it could have caused that. Do you remember that, or do you think it was more subconscious?
It was probably subconscious, because I don't remember my parents ever being together. Like, I don't remember them hugging each other. I don't remember my daddy coming in. And so my memory is he would pick me up. I would go to his house. There was never oh man, daddy has left, you know. So, but of course that's in your memory because it did happen. I just don't remember it in my conscious, but the subconscious can definitely hold on to things. So
Okay.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting that you kind of put the trauma of that with maybe the start of, you know, the speech things you were struggling with. Tell me, as you got older, as you got into your teen years, how that affected you.
you know, here's the crazy thing. When it came to talking to girls, I guess I felt more comfortable, you know, and so I could kind of hide it, you know. so um, so the confidence in talking to girls was never an issue. I would literally practice like, okay, I'm gonna say, "How you doing?" So I've learned that if I do practice and prepare myself, that I won't, you know, stammer so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so the girls, no issue. Of course, over time, it's like, oh, you stutter? Like my wife, she did not know that I stuttered
Okay.
until we got together, and she like, you stutter? I was like, yeah, you didn't stutter? No. So I was able to really kind of hide it.
Okay.
What got me as a teenager was speaking like this in public. Oh, I would for real have an anxiety attack. I would just feel the pressure. Man, if I mess up, when it comes to the S's or the WQs or the Q's, man, I'm gonna mess up, and everybody's like hucking right at me. So
Yep.
so those things, talking on the phone, I mean, simple, basic things, I struggled with it like so much that I would have this intense anxiety, and I think that made it worse. So as a teenager, yes, talking on the phone, being in front of a camera petrified me.
Mm.
Going up to speak, I'll tell you about a time when I was in high school. And so it was graduation time. So one of the teachers thought of this idea that I did not like. He was like, well, when your family comes, just record yourself thanking them and da 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 da. I said, teacher, I stuttered. This is not gonna go good. But she's trying to encourage me, and then I'm like, I know I'm gonna have some. It don't matter how much I practice, I do whatever. It's not going to come out good.
Mm-hmm.
So I reluctantly did it. When I tell you the anxiety, the pressure, I stuttered over almost every word. That was the most embarrassing moment in my entire life. And you know how when you're in school and we're reading a book or whatever and taking turns, once again, I would be like, oh, okay, I'm the 12th person. So
Oh man,
I'm gonna be reading this part. Like it was
the countdown to doom.
Yes.
I could hear. That's one thing is I struggle with reading in a public situation. I don't have a problem with speech. I had hearing issues when I was little, so I didn't pronounce my words right. I didn't hear them when I was developing. So I did struggle with how I pronounced words when I was younger, but I don't struggle with that now. But to this day, I'm deathly afraid of reading in front of people. So I can only imagine if I had, that struggle that you were struggling with, that would just be like a ton of bricks about to just fall on your head.
Yes. And you know the interesting part is that I've never really talked about none of this. The reading part, like I don't even think my mama know this, but But those were things I just kind of kept to myself. It was my own thing with dealing with stuttering. And so yeah, so when it was my turn, I would try my best to take my time. I would still stutter. I was just like, oh man. And I feel like there was no way to get around it, you know. And so yeah, reading, getting up to I remember in high school, and you know how, and I guess teachers don't really get it, you know, because I've tried to tell my teacher, hey, speech impediment, please don't call me to speak up. It's gonna be embarrassing. I have anxiety, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Oh yeah.
the teacher, and they're just kind of like, it's okay. Da, da, da. So doing projects, and you have to get up front with your team and speak on or present things. Oh man, those. Not that I didn't like to do those things, but I felt so handicapped when it came to those things.
Yep.
And so college though, I would say here's the breaking point. Well, no. Let me go back. 19, I graduated from high school. I think I was 18. And so, but when I turned 19, that was a epiphany. I was like, man, I didn't go to a speech pathologist. And you know, if parents are not educated, they don't know how to help you with something that they know nothing about.
Yep.
So I was like, man, I really want to know how can I overcome this or try to figure it out. Like, where does it come from? Is it hereditary? Is it something that you pick? Like, I didn't know. My thought was, well, I get it from my my auntie stuttered.
Okay.
Not so much stuttered, but she talked very fast, and so she would stumble over her words. And so I would hear and see her like, well, it's probably in a family or whatever. And so I thought, well, this is just something that's been passed down to me. So, you know, and so I've met people that stutter. And there was a girl I went to school with. She stuttered just as bad as me. But as we get older, I think she went to a speech pathologist, and so she just stopped stuttering. So,
Okay.
And anyway, so I turned 19, and I'm like, let me figure this out. So to tell my age or the era I come from, I went to the library. There was no internet. So I just began to read books. Come to find out, a lot of actors have stuttered. You know,
Interesting.
James Earl Jones, he said that he stuttered so bad, like he could not get words out.
Wow.
And so
and he's a narrator now, right? He reads.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so in one particular book, I don't know if it was about him, that's him, but anyway, he said how some steps that he did. He said that he put marbles in his mouth and he would try to talk. Another thing is that he slowed down his speech tremendously. He told his friends and family, "Hey, I'm working on my speech, so I'm going to talk extremely slow." Oh, I was okay with the marbles thing.
I'd be scared to choke on a marble.
I was like, but to slow my speech down, people gonna think I'm slow, something's going on. I mean,
I could see that.
I was like, I can't do that. I'm going to work, I'm talking to people. So I stopped it like right there. I didn't read anymore. I didn't try to skip some stuff, I just stop them.
Okay.
So now I'm praying about it, not in a God, stop the people from talking about me as a child. Now God, show me how to figure this thing out, stop stuttering, and so one thing that God told me, because one thing I would do is I would be in a crowd of people like my friends from school or church. I would have the funniest joke, but I was like, man, if I tell my joke, I'm gonna be stuttering. By the time I get to the point, you know what I'm saying? So
I get it. Yep.
so I became a recluse. Like, of course, my close friends, I'm talking and stuff. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but after I stopped at that one point in the book, and I'm praying now about it. And so God said, you're gonna have to talk. He said, so who this? Every person in a store, you speak to them. Just say hi. How you doing? That's easy. You're not gonna stutter over that. So I began to practice that. And I'm sure some females thought I was trying to talk to them. No, I'm trying to practice on my speech. And so over time, that gave me the confidence to speak more. Of course, it's in public because I'm at the gas station,
Yep.
And so from there, they gave me the confidence, and then I began to practice. All right, let me pause. Let me take a deep breath. Let me take my time and speak. It's still hard to do that because I've been so trained to talk quickly.
Right, because your family. It sounds like your family. They were quick
Yes,
talkers.
they talk very fast.
So God called God. So you were prayed to God, and He said, "Listen, it's time to build the confidence. It's time to go out there and time to speak to people and build that confidence." That's awesome.
Yeah, and so from there, I would practice on those things, but I'm still now at this point I'm not stuttering the same way as a child or a teenager because now I know some steps that I can do. I'm praying about it now,
Right.
And so I would say when I turned 30, kind of like when Jesus started his.
Did you say 30? You look like you're 22.
Man, I wish I was still 22.
Well, you age well.
Yes. And so thank you. And so I turned 30, moved to a whole new city, and the thought came up. Remember when he was reading the books back when he was 19 to figure out your speech and where it comes from, can it be fixed, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, it was a Holy Spirit, And I was like, yeah. And I was like, now we have the internet. So
there you go.
I don't have to go to a library. So I began to hook up different speech pathologists. And there was this older guy. And he went through how do you think it comes from and the myths of it. And he said one is not hereditary. And so he began to break down that the speech, the development of a child. And I was like, I never thought about that, And so here's the crazy thing too. All of my children stuttered as children, like 2, 3. I would say my middle son stuttered bad. Like I was like, oh Lord, please don't let him have this same struggle that I had. But they have speech pathologists at schools now. So he was my middle son, he was able to go. My oldest son was starting to get like that, but I was a speech pathologist at his school too. My daughter just kind of did it for a brief second, and I was like, why? Like,
Right.
but children copy, so they hear me stammering, so
They think that's the way to speak.
yeah.
Okay.
And so she had it for a brief second, and then she just stopped. She didn't have no speech pathologist, but she just grew out of it, I guess. And so, Kim, how's my thought?
That's okay. Let me ask you a question. Is there a time in your life, as an adult where you go through something and you notice that you stutter more or less? I mean, is there influences that cause that? Something around your, maybe you're tired, or maybe you haven't eaten right, or you haven't gotten enough sleep. Is there anything like that causes it?
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing is that when I'm tired, I don't stutter. I guess it has to do with how relaxed I am, how calm, and how comfortable too. Like when I'm talking to my wife, I'm not stammering. If I'm talking to a friend, I'm not doing it. I would say when I'm talking to new people, I might stutter. Well, stammer then.
So it's the anxiousness then that causes it, essentially. Yeah. The nervousness, anxiousness, those type of things.
Yeah. And then when I'm not practicing to take a deep breath and to pause and to take my time, that it happens like that a lot too. And of course, if I'm nervous, like now I'm not nervous, but you still might hear it in there. Mm-hmm. But it could be times when if it starts off with an S, I'm a stutter.
Right. Gotcha.
Camera on it. So
I see. So we got about 4 minutes left here. Tell me a time in your life that you felt with these struggles that you were having, where you felt God had failed you, and you didn't feel like He was close, but He actually was. Do you have any experiences like that?
Oh yes. I didn't mention this, but I just I felt that I was gonna always stutter, but and that because I prayed hard, like, God, help me to stop stuttering, and I would still do it, and I'm like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And so God had to tell me that sometimes, like Paul said, I have a thorn in my side. Sometimes God will lay things with you to, one, keep you humble. I'm gonna be honest, if I talk perfectly as a child and growing up, I probably wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I've seen where God has he's put me in positions where I have to talk. I have to talk face to face with people. I had a job where I was answering phone calls for direct TV. And so I was still in the stuttering stages. How I did that, BJ, it was God, because sometimes I couldn't get the words out, and I would have to stop and pause in a person. I'm sure they was like, is it a bad connection? Like he's breaking up his and with Comcast, I was a technician. So I had to speak to people, explain things. That's one thing I have learned. And I know when I know something and I'm explaining it, I don't have that issue of stammering over it. And so I think of a couple of texts. I did not know that God speaks about speech in the Bible until I was 30.
Interesting.
Exodus,
share something with us about that.
Exodus 4:10, because people say Moses stuttered. We really don't know if he stuttered or if it was just he didn't know the language that much. Either way, he thought that he had an issue with his speech. Exodus 4:10 through 12. Moses and God, they're having a conversation. And so Moses is saying, God, I'm slow of speech, my tongue, he's saying all of these things. And God is like, who made your tongue? Who gave you the brain to think? I got you. If Moses could have let God pay him totally, he didn't need Aaron. God could have fixed his speech to know the language and speak it excellent. But he was doubting what he could do, not what God could do.
Right.
And then I think of Jeremiah 1:9, where he says, put your words in my mouth. So if God is putting any words in it, it's gonna come out perfectly. People are going to understand it. And this text is my favorite text. Is Deuteronomy 31:6. God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So even if I'm stammering or whatever it may be that you're dealing with, know that God is there. He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forget about your issues or your problems or what you're going through. And I believe the last one I believe is Jeremiah 1:8. It says, be not afraid of their faces. That was the biggest thing, because I'm like, this person is frowning. They're kind of hucking away, like, he up here talking. I would look at, I think that made me to be a very detailed and observant person, because it made me like look at people, how they hucking, how do they probably saying or doing or thinking,
Right.
So when I saw this text, I was like, wow, man, God has an answer for every situation.
That is absolutely true.
And God he gives us the confidence, because I did not have it. I was like, this is my plot. This is who I am. And God was like, no, you are not a stutterer. You are a person that has things to say that people want to hear.
Yep, absolutely. And I think too, when God allows us to go through things and it makes us stronger. And I know I've met you in real life. I know that the things that you've gone through in your life has just made you stronger, made you more reliant on God, and made you just a stronger person in general. And I think it's awesome to actually finally hear your story. I've always known that you had this story, but this is the first time you've actually explained it to me. And so it's been super cool to get to know you a little bit better and see how God has worked in your life. And, it's very true. If you're going through something and, calling out to God to get through these trials, he may not bring you out of the trials, but he will bring you through those trials and teach you how to use the struggles you deal with to bring other people closer to God. Because, Emmanuel, you are an amazing chef. And you know what? The struggles that you've had with speech has not stopped you, serving the Lord. I know you put on health seminars, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you have to speak, right?
Yes.
I mean, you're doing public speaking to a whole other level. So, if you have a struggle out there and you think it's keeping you from doing what God has for you, I mean, look at what God is doing through Emmanuel. Don't let your struggles stop you. If anything, ask God to help you get through those. Hey, I really appreciate you coming aboard and telling us your story and everything that God's gotten you through.
No problem. Thank you, man, for giving me this platform to, speak on this, because I've only heard a few people talk about stuttering. It's just one of those things. It's just something that people do. But to know what people go through, man, and when I've met people, I met one person that I was like, my stuttering is nothing, because she literally could not get words out. And so I've met people where I'm like, man, why is it so bad? And I can't tell. And God is like, don't just think that it's just you and yours is just so messed up.
Right.
And so it's interesting how God has put me in the forefront. And I was like, listen, this is just something that happens. It's not what defines who I am. But I'm gonna continue to go forward. God has told me you have to talk. So
yep, absolutely. So don't stop.
Yeah. So just keep pushing through. Jesus came to this earth and was perfect, and people still talked about him, called him all sorts of names, killed him. So it doesn't matter how perfect or how right you think things have to be. Just go with God and just push through.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, Emmanuel. This is the first of many podcasts we'll be doing on people that are overcoming struggles and addictions and those sort of things. So stay tuned for more episodes coming up here soon.
A testimony is a story. The story of what was once a struggle or a hindrance. But now that struggle has been turned into victory. What has defeated you? Drugs, sex, pride, selfishness. Join Andre and BJ for the Overcomer's Testimony Corner. Revelation 12:11 says, and they overcame him through the blood of the Lamb and through the word of their testimony.